Please welcome to the stage now, Monika Novak!
Okay. Hi, everyone. I can't really see anything. Hi. So yeah, this is my first time, so forgive any pauses and breaks if they happen. So yeah, here's my story. Back in 2007, I used to live in Hell's Kitchen, and I used to work at this bar on 8th Avenue and 46th Street, and I used to be a cocktail waitress. And one Friday afternoon, when I came to work, as I walk in, I see my coworker, Brian, sitting in a corner with a big suitcase and just looking kind of strange. So as I approach him, I say, "Hi, Brian, how are you? How is your day?" And that's when I noticed that Brian looks really disheveled. He has scratches all over his arms, and he has a big bruise on his right cheek, and he just really looks out of it. So he looks at me, and he says, "I just had the worst day of my life." And I say, "What happened?" And he's like, "You know what? I don't really want to talk about it. I'm still very upset, and this is just a little bit too much to get into right now." But I started investigating. I say, "Well, maybe, you need some help. What's going on? What happened? You can tell me. Maybe I can help you, blah, blah, blah." So eventually he ended up telling me what happened. And what happened was he got into a fight with his roommate. And he basically kicked him out of the apartment, stole some of his stuff, stole his money. And right now, he didn't have a place to go, he didn't know anyone in the city, and he didn't know what to do next. So I feel sorry for Brian, even though I didn't know him that well, but I could relate to that situation of being all by myself in a big city and not having any friends, any family, because I just came probably like about 2 years prior to that from Poland, and I had just 2 suitcases and $1,000 in my pocket, and if something like that happened to me, I would be lost and terrified. So I told Brian, "Look, if you want, there is a couch in my apartment. You're more than welcome to crash on it, and it's not gonna be a problem." My roommates and I were used to having people sleeping there all the time, and the couch is currently available, so if you want, you can crash on it, and hopefully we figure something out. So that's what we did. When we finished the shift, we went to my place, and I set him up on the couch, and then I just went to sleep. So when I woke up in the morning, Brian wasn't there. He just left a thank you note, and which says, "Thank you, I'll see you later." So that was it. So next day, Saturday, as I get to work, it's right away a super busy night. The place was constantly overcrowded, understaffed, and super loud. And I'm just running back and forth between the bar and the dance floor, not only serving the drinks, but also making the drinks. And it's just a busy, busy, busy night. So at some point, like as I'm making another vodka cranberry, I look to my left and I see the owner of the place standing by the door, and he's talking with 2 guys, both of them wearing suits and one of them holding a briefcase. And they definitely stand out amongst that crowd that we used to get there. Like, Hell's Kitchen in 2007 was still pretty rough. So the guys were like, both of them were just totally out of place there. So I kind of like laughed at it a little bit, but I had my drinks ready and I was ready to serve them. So I ran back on the dance floor to serve them. So as I come back, the owner of the place taps me on the shoulder and he says, "They want to talk to you." And he points at those 2 guys. I was like, "Come on, I have no time for this. It's like I'm the only waitress on the floor tonight. I don't have time for that." And he says, "They're from FBI." "What?" And he said, "They're from FBI. You need to talk to them." And this is the first time during that night that I actually stop. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to move again because I suddenly feel like I've been paralyzed. And I have this huge wave of heat coming from the bottom of my stomach through my chest, going to my throat, and I feel my throat tightening up. Almost as much as it's tightening up right now, telling this story on the stage. And I'm standing there, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I know he's saying something, but I can't really hear it because the place suddenly gets quiet. Like all the noises get muffled, and I'm just standing there with my mind blank. Main thought that's going through my head is some mixture of shit, what the fuck, I can't believe this. So I guess I have to backtrack a little bit here and tell you why my reaction over there happened the way it did. So I was an illegal immigrant in this country. I came 2 years prior as I say, with a suitcase, 2 suitcases, $1,000. And yeah, I fell in love with a comedian. And yeah, I decided to overstay my visa, and here I was 2 years later, now currently being illegal immigrant. And yeah, and this is what was happening, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that it would happen to me, not in this place, in the middle of the dance floor. I'm being busted and being kicked out of the country. So yeah, I'm like standing there, and then I just feel like I've been taken out of there. I'm just watching this situation as it's happening, that it's really not happening to me. But then, yeah, I mean, we went down to the basement where the office was, and the FBI guys were there already. So they introduced themselves, and they definitely had that dynamic of the good, funny guy and the bad, more serious guy. So we sat at the table, and the bad guy, let's call him bad guy, did most of the talking. And so he asked me, what's my name? I said, what's my name? What's your address? Told him my address. And then he asks me, what do you know about Brian? And I'm like, Brian, the coworker? He's like, yeah. So I said, well, he's the coworker, like we work together. And as I'm answering that question, I was like, why are they asking me about Brian? Like, what does Brian has to do with that? And that's when it hits me that Brian actually was the one who reported me to the officials. And as I'm sitting there, I find myself getting so angry. Like, angry with Brian for being such a jerk, or dick, to make it clear. And just doing something like that after I've been nice to him, after I was trying to help him. But mainly angry with myself for being like so stupid and naive and just telling everyone and their mother about my legal situation in this country. So like all of my coworkers, my friends, my neighbors, everyone knew that I was looking for a guy to get married to get my green card. And I thought that this is just like a good networking. And and that the more people knew about my story, like I'm trying to get married, the more people would, there would be more opportunities. So here I was, all of it came back biting me in the ass. I was actually thinking that maybe Brian could marry me, maybe he knows someone to marry me, and here we are. He just reported me to the official, and I was just devastated. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like on the verge of starting to cry, and they keep asking me questions. And at some point, like after a few questions, like what did you do on Friday night? Like, what do you know about Brian? Blah, blah, blah. So that's when I realized there's like a lot of questions about Brian. And that's when I start thinking like, I don't think this is really about me. I think maybe this is about Brian. So I look at the good, approachable guy, and I say, and at that point, actually, I started crying because there were just all these emotions and feelings. And I said, can you tell me what this is all about? And he looks at me with this like smile on his face. He's like, don't cry, you'll be fine. And I'm like thinking, yeah, it's easy for you to say. But anyway, like what I find out next is that Brian is actually not Brian. His name is Clarence. And Clarence/Brian is a registered sex offender in 2 states. And Brian just came down from Florida, where he raped a woman and he stole her car. So while in New York, Brian was staying at this, city hotel in Times Square. And on Thursday night, Brian brought in a girl that he met on Craigslist. And he ended up raping her, strangling her, wrapping her body up in a plastic bags, and stuffing it under the bed. And then in the morning, he checked out, he came to work on Friday afternoon, and that's when I met him, and that's when I took him home. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like processing this whole information, and I'm like, oh my God. I just feel this sense of relief, like, oh my God, like, thank God this is not about me. This is about something else. It's not me, like, oh my God, I can go home, I can sleep in my own bed, I can wake up tomorrow and continue my American dream. And So yeah, it took me probably another 4 weeks to really like process that information, to really like feel what actually happened. But that night, I was actually walking home and I felt like I was on a cloud nine. And I was actually humming a song and then just, being super happy. So when I got home, my roommates were up actually, because all of us, we used to work night shifts. And all of us actually, we used to be illegal, same situation. So I told them what happened. The first question was like, oh my God, were there any body parts in that suitcase that he had? So I was like, no, there was no body parts. We're fine, we're good. But then they were just as happy as I was. And we actually toasted to it, cheers to not being busted by, officials. I mean, it's like life is good. So yeah, my coworkers, on the other hand, started fetishizing this whole thing about Brian. One of them actually printed out his picture from New York Post or Daily News or like one of those, and he framed it and he put it behind the bar, and then we were just telling everyone that story. But then, probably, as I say, 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks after that, I started having flashbacks of what happened. I started having flashbacks of my interactions with Brian, Clarence, and and I just remember that night we were sitting on the couch and how he was taking off the scabs from those scratches, and I just remember that look on his face, and now all of it was just coming back to me, and and then I was thinking about this poor woman who must have fought so hard. And it was just really again, didn't happen. Those feelings didn't happen until 4 or 5 weeks after that. So years later, in the retrospect, I was wondering were we really such a bad, heartless people to just take so carelessly someone dying, somebody being murdered by some psycho. But now I like to think that I'll blame it on working the night shift, living in Hell's Kitchen, drinking too much, and doing too much cocaine. Thank you.